David, what can the cooperative movement do to take a lead in addressing the energy crisis right now, particularly in view of what you were saying about the chaos in the global biofuels issue?
Absolutely. Well, I think there are two things, both in different directions, really. I think at the highest level, you need to get much more strategic. I agree with what my colleague is saying here in terms of action on the ground. That's the second level. First of all, do you perhaps have too many principles? Is it time to actually reduce that number of principles to try and get this into something which is digestible, which is, from my perspective, about sustainable development? And I think all the values, all the ethics, the environmental, the social, the economic, can be portrayed now under the banner of sustainable development, which goes perfectly with all of your history and all of your background, but you're not communicating it in that way. And I think secondly, at the same time, you need to get some actions going. Good practice, some of the ideas that's being talked about here, particularly on energy. My concern about energy is, as I said, it's in a state of chaos. There are as many solutions as you can think of. Not all of them can be sustainable. Many of them are intrinsically unsustainable. And as you probably know, there's a huge debate at the moment about biofuels, biodiesel in particular, ethanol. Many people claiming these are actually quite dangerous in terms of consuming resources which should otherwise be going to feeding the world rather than powering our SUVs in America or whatever. So there are some big issues. What I think is the opportunity here is for the cooperative movement to actually get down to some detail, to start to fund, sponsor detailed research into those options which look at each of them from the same independent, neutral, sustainable development perspective. What is it we're actually trying to achieve with these things, and how do we avoid making the same mistakes we made in the past? That's a science issue, but it's also an application issue. And I think by combining those two directions, being strategic and getting something done, you can actually make some real progress. Okay, well, that aspect of being more strategic is basically saying you need to scale up. You really need to get serious about this agenda, and the way in which that works most effectively, in my experience, in all organisations, is at the same time as you're addressing those principles and the vision and the strategy, do something. Actually get some action going that inform that process, that they're not separate, they're linked. And what I'm suggesting is that the best way to bridge that link on the energy issue in particular, which I agree is top priority for everyone, is to actually examine what the alternatives are. There are many. There are thousands of alternatives in terms of what might be the answer to getting rid of fossil fuels and its impacts on us all. No one at the moment is really able to tell you whether biodiesel, nuclear, coal sequestration, wind turbines, tidal power, etc., is ultimately sustainable or not. I think the cooperative movement's got real potential to be able to sponsor, take part in that kind of research and real analysis on the ground as to what is going to work. Now, there isn't one answer, of course. There will be different answers in different places according to the circumstances. But you need to be really careful about where you're going to invest in terms of alternatives, because someone is going to make a big mistake sooner or later. And I would sooner it wasn't the cooperative movement